She thought she had it all. Love, loyalty, and a future built on trust. But life has a way of testing what we think we can't live without, and sometimes, what breaks you becomes the very thing that builds you. Hey family, welcome to Mr. Steven's Stories, where every story reminds you that strength isn't about revenge, it's about rising above it. If you believe pain can turn into power, hit that like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell, because today's story will change how you see heartbreak forever. The champagne glass trembled in Celeste Navarro's hand, but not from excitement. She stood in the penthouse suite of the Horizon Hotel, her hotel, staring at her phone screen as the world she'd carefully constructed collapsed in a single Instagram post. The image showed Adrienne Leclerc, her fiancé, down on one knee before another woman. A brunette in a white dress, her hand covering her mouth in staged surprise. The caption read, "Our forever begins." She said yes. Just 3 hours earlier, Celeste had stood in this very room, surrounded by investors from Abu Dhabi and representatives from the Emirates royal family. She'd closed a $300 million expansion deal that would take her Navarro Luxe hotel chain into 12 European cities. Adrienne had kissed her cheek and whispered, "I'm so proud of you, my love. 5 more days until you're Mrs. Leclerc. 5 days until their wedding." Now, she scrolled through the comments on the post. Congratulations poured in from people she knew, people who'd received invitations to her wedding. Her wedding. The phone slipped from her fingers onto the marble floor, the screen cracking in a spider web pattern that mirrored how her heart felt. But Celeste didn't cry. She'd learned long ago that tears were a luxury she couldn't afford. She'd built her empire from nothing, a girl from Sao Paulo who'd worked 3 jobs to put herself through hospitality school, who'd scrubbed hotel floors before she owned them. She'd survived worse than a cheating fiancé. She picked up her phone with steady hands and made a call. "Marina. It's Celeste. I need you. Now." 40 minutes later, Marina Holt swept into the penthouse like a force of nature. She was 52, silver-haired, and had a reputation that made billionaires sweat. They called her the Velvet Guillotine because her smile was warm but her legal strikes were lethal. "Show me," Marina said, setting down her Hermes briefcase. Celeste handed her the phone. Marina's expression didn't change as she scrolled, but her jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. "Isabelle Darcy," Marina said. "Daughter of François Darcy, the French real estate magnate. Interesting choice. What does that mean?" Celeste asked. "It means this wasn't just about love, darling. This was business." Marina set down the phone and opened her briefcase. "Now, let's talk about that prenup you had the wisdom to insist upon." Celeste retrieved the document from her safe. She remembered the argument when she presented it to Adrienne 2 years ago. He'd laughed, said it was unnecessary, that their love was eternal. She'd insisted. Now she understood why some part of her had never fully trusted him. Marina read through the contract, her smile growing. "Oh, this is beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. Clause 17, subsection B. In the event of infidelity prior to or during marriage, the offending party forfeits all shared assets, business interests, and investment portfolios to the aggrieved party." She looked up at Celeste. "Do you know what you have here?" "What?" "Everything. You have everything. The resort in Bali you developed together, his 40% stake in Navarro Luxe that you gifted him last year, the real estate holdings in Monaco, even the art collection. All of it reverts to you." Celeste felt something cold settle in her chest. Not satisfaction. Not yet. Just calculation. "He'll fight it," she said. "Of course he will. Men like Adrienne always do. They think the rules don't apply to them." Marina's smile turned sharp. "That's why we're going to move first, move fast, and move smart. By the time he realizes what's happening, it'll be too late." They worked through the night. While Dubai slept beneath them, Celeste and Marina crafted a strategy that was both elegant and devastating. They started with the Bali resort, the crown jewel of their joint portfolio. Worth $180 million, it was scheduled to open in 6 months. "We sell his share," Marina said. "I have a buyer in Singapore who's been trying to break into the luxury market. She'll move quickly and pay in cash. Adrian will try to stop the sale," Celeste said. "He can try. But legally, you have majority ownership and the prenup gives you full control in cases of breach of contract. His infidelity is a breach. We'll have the sale executed before he can file an injunction." Celeste looked out at the city below, thinking about the girl she'd been 15 years ago, hungry and determined. Then she thought about the woman she'd become, powerful but somehow still vulnerable enough to be betrayed. "Do it," she said. The next morning, Celeste's phone exploded with calls and texts. She ignored them all except one, from her assistant Marcus. "Have you seen the news?" he asked when she answered. "No." "What news?" "Adrian's engagement announcement made the society pages." "But that's not all. Someone leaked it to the business press. They're connecting it to your upcoming wedding." "Celeste, TMZ has the story. So does the Financial Times." She hung up and turned on the television. Her own face stared back at her from the screen, a photo from last year's Forbes profile. The headline below read, "Hotel heiress jilted days before wedding as fiancé announces engagement to rival's daughter." Her phone rang. "Adrian." She answered. "Celeste, baby, I can explain." "Don't call me that." Her voice was ice. "It's not what it looks like. The engagement, it's complicated. Business. You have to understand." "I understand perfectly, Adrian. I understand that 3 days ago you were in my bed promising forever. I understand that you helped me pick out wedding favors. I understand that 200 people have flights booked to attend our ceremony. What I don't understand is how you thought this would end well for you." There was a pause. When he spoke again, his tone had changed. The pleading was gone, replaced by something harder. "Don't do anything stupid, Celeste. We have business interests together. Contracts. You can't just." "Can't I?" "Read the prenup, Adrian. Section 17. I'll wait." She heard papers rustling, then a sharp intake of breath. "You wouldn't." "I already have. The Bali resort, your shares, they sold this morning. $180 million. Well, my $180 million now. That's impossible. I would have had to sign." "No, you wouldn't have. Check the fine print. In cases of material breach, I have unilateral authority. Your lawyers should have read more carefully. Mine certainly did. You bitch." His voice shook with rage. "You calculated, cold. Careful, Adrian. This call is recorded. I'd hate for your new fiancé to hear how you really speak to women." She hung up. Marina called an hour later. "He's filed an emergency injunction to stop any further asset transfers. We're in court tomorrow morning. Will it work?" "Not a chance. But it'll be entertaining to watch him try." The courtroom was surprisingly full for a 9 a.m. hearing. Celeste wore a white suit, crisp and professional. Adrian sat across the aisle in navy, his jaw tight, looking like he hadn't slept. His lawyer was Harrison Webb, expensive and aggressive. The judge, a woman in her 60s named Margaret Chen, reviewed the filings with an expression that gave nothing away. "Mr. Webb, your client is seeking to halt the transfer of assets based on what grounds exactly?" Judge Chen asked. "Your Honor, the prenuptial agreement in question was signed under duress and contains unconscionable clauses that..." "Duress?" Marina stood. "Your Honor, Mr. Leclerc was represented by counsel when he signed." The agreement was reviewed for 30 days before signature. He's a sophisticated businessman who's negotiated billion-dollar deals. What duress could possibly have existed? Furthermore, Marina continued, Mr. Leclerc publicly announced his engagement to another woman while still legally engaged to my client. The prenup explicitly addresses this scenario. There's no ambiguity here. Judge Chen looked at Adrian. Mr. Leclerc, did you or did you not get engaged to Isabel Darcy on June 14 of this year? Adrian's lawyer started to answer, but the judge held up her hand. I asked Mr. Leclerc. Adrian stood slowly. I did, Your Honor, but the circumstances. Were you or were you not still engaged to Ms. Navarro at that time? Technically, yes, but... Then I see no grounds for this injunction. The contract is clear, it was properly executed, and Mr. Leclerc breached it. Motion denied. The gavel came down like a guillotine. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed. Celeste kept her head high, her expression serene, as cameras flashed. Marina handled the questions with practiced ease. Ms. Navarro is disappointed by Mr. Leclerc's choices but remains focused on her business and her future. She wishes him well. That night, Celeste sat in her penthouse and finally let herself feel it. The hurt, the betrayal, the humiliation. She poured herself a glass of wine and didn't drink it. Just held it, watching the liquid catch the light. Her phone buzzed. An email from an unknown address. Ms. Navarro, my name is Isabel Darcy. I know you have no reason to speak to me, but I need to tell you something important. Something about Adrian that you deserve to know. Please. I'm not your enemy. At Mr. Stevens Stories, we don't just tell stories, we remind you that heartbreak can be a door to your destiny. So if you're still watching, drop a heart in the comments to remind someone that your peace is more powerful than revenge. Let's keep going, because Celeste's story is just getting started. Celeste stared at the email for 20 minutes before responding. They agreed to meet in Paris, neutral ground, at a small cafe near the Seine that tourists rarely found. Isabel Darcy was younger than Celeste expected, maybe 28, with dark hair and eyes that looked tired. She wore minimal makeup and a simple dress. She didn't look like a woman who just gotten engaged to a billionaire. She looked terrified. They sat outside, September rain threatening overhead. Thank you for coming, Isabel said quietly. Her English carried a soft French accent. I wasn't sure you would. I almost didn't, Celeste admitted. Why am I here, Isabel? Because you deserve the truth. And because I need your help. Isabel pulled a flash drive from her purse. Everything I'm about to tell you is on here. Documented. Verified. I'm listening. Adrian and my father have been working together for 3 years. They've been using my father's real estate holdings and your hotel developments to move money. Illegal money. They've been falsifying contracts, inflating property values, engaging in insider trading. Millions of dollars, Celeste. Maybe more. Celeste felt her stomach drop. That's impossible. I would have known. I sign off on every. They forged your signatures. Adrian had access to all your accounts, your passwords. He's been doctoring documents for years. Isabel's hands shook as she pushed the flash drive across the table. I found out 6 months ago. I confronted my father and he told me I had a choice. Marry Adrian and keep quiet, or he'd make sure I never worked in France again. He'd destroy me. So you chose to marry a man you didn't love to protect yourself? No. Isabel's eyes filled with tears. I chose to pretend to go along with it while I gathered evidence. I've been working with a financial investigator for 4 months. Everything they've done, every crime, it's documented. But I can't go public alone. My father will destroy me. He has that power. But you. She looked at Celeste with something like hope. You have resources, connections, protection. Together, we can stop them both. Celeste picked up the flash drive. Why should I trust you? Because I'm the only one who's telling you the truth. Because Adrian used us both. And because if you don't stop him now, he'll do this to someone else. That night, in her hotel room, Celeste reviewed the files on the drive. Bank transfers. Forged documents. Email chains detailing exactly how Adrian had used her company as a front for money laundering. Her signature on contracts she'd never seen. Her reputation, her life's work, all of it compromised. She called Marina. We need to go bigger, Celeste said. I need you to contact the Financial Crimes Division. And I need you to get me a meeting with the International Finance Tribunal in Geneva. Marina was quiet for a moment. Celeste, if you do this, it won't just destroy Adrian. This will be international news. Your company will be investigated. You'll be questioned. Your entire life will be scrutinized. I know. Are you sure? Celeste thought about the girl who'd scrubbed floors, who'd built something from nothing, who'd believed in hard work and integrity. She thought about every woman who'd been lied to, used, betrayed by men who thought power meant they could do whatever they wanted. I'm sure. The investigation took 6 months. Celeste cooperated fully, providing access to all her records, all her accounts. The tribunal investigators combed through every transaction, every contract. They verified Isabel's evidence and found even more. Shell companies. Offshore accounts. A network of corruption that spanned 3 countries. Adrian tried to run. He was stopped at the airport in Monaco with €2 million in cash and a fake passport. The photos of him in handcuffs made every newspaper in Europe. François Darcy resigned from his company's board and faced criminal charges. Isabel testified against him, her voice steady, her evidence irrefutable. Through it all, Celeste remained calm. She held press conferences, answered questions, maintained her dignity. Her company took a hit, stock prices dropped, but her transparency and cooperation earned her respect. She'd been a victim of fraud, and she'd had the courage to expose it. The tribunal's final ruling came down on a cold morning in Geneva. Adrian was banned from trading in European markets for life and sentenced to 8 years for fraud and money laundering. François Darcy received 12 years. Their assets were seized and distributed among their victims. Celeste stood outside the courthouse, snow beginning to fall, and felt nothing. No triumph, no satisfaction. Just exhaustion. Marina put a hand on her shoulder. It's over. Is it? The legal part is. The rest, that's up to you. Celeste took a year away from everything. She stepped back from Navarro Lux, putting trusted executives in charge. She traveled, but not to luxury resorts. She went to small towns in Portugal, villages in Greece, quiet beaches in Croatia. She read books, learned to paint badly, and slowly remembered who she'd been before Adrian, before the empire, before everything. In a small coastal town in Italy, she attended a charity summit for women entrepreneurs. She wasn't speaking, wasn't hosting, just attending. Being anonymous felt like freedom. That's where she met Leon Armitage. He was giving a lecture on sustainable business practices, a philosophy professor who'd left academia to consult for companies trying to do better. He was tall, in his 40s, with gray in his beard and eyes that actually listened when people spoke. After his talk, they ended up at the same table for lunch. You asked good questions, he said, pouring her wine. You gave honest answers. That's rare. What do you do? He asked. She almost laughed. When was the last time someone didn't know who she was? I used to run a hotel company. Now. I'm not sure. Trying to figure out what comes next. That's brave, he said. Most people are too scared to admit they don't know. They talked for 3 hours. About purpose, about ethics, about what it meant to build something that mattered. He didn't flirt, didn't posture. He just saw her, really saw her, in a way she hadn't felt seen in years. When they parted, he handed her his card. I'm teaching a seminar next month in Florence. On rebuilding after failure. You should come. I didn't fail, she said automatically. No. But you're rebuilding anyway. That's even harder. She went to Florence. And then to his next seminar in Barcelona. And slowly, carefully, something grew between them that felt nothing like what she'd had with Adrian. This was quieter, steadier. Built on respect and shared values rather than passion and promises. A year after the trial, Celeste launched a new company, Aurelia Estates. Smaller than Navarro Lux, but built on different principles. Ethical sourcing, fair wages, environmental sustainability. Every hotel was a partnership with local communities. Every decision was transparent. Leon consulted on the project, helping her build something that aligned with who she was becoming rather than who she'd been. At the opening of her first Aurelia property on the Amalfi Coast, Celeste stood on the terrace watching the sunset paint the Mediterranean gold and purple. The hotel was beautiful, intimate, real. Only 40 rooms, but each one perfect. Leon found her there, handed her champagne. You did it, he said. We did it. No. This was yours. I just helped you remember what you already knew. She turned to him. What's that? That you don't build something meaningful by trying to be the biggest. You do it by being the truest. Her phone buzzed. Another media request, this time from a network wanting to do a documentary about her takedown of Adrian. She declined, as she had declined all the others. Leon raised an eyebrow. You don't want to tell your story? I just did. This hotel, this company. That's my story. Adrian was just a chapter. A painful one, but not the whole book. That's remarkably healthy for someone who was betrayed days before her wedding. She smiled. Therapy helps. So does distance. And so does realizing that the best revenge isn't destroying someone. It's becoming so completely yourself that what they did to you becomes irrelevant. Is it? Irrelevant? She thought about it honestly. No. It still hurts sometimes. I still have moments where I wonder what I missed, what I could have done differently. But I don't let those moments define me anymore. I let them inform me. They stood together in comfortable silence, watching the light fade and the stars emerge. Do you think you'll marry again? Leon asked quietly. Maybe. Someday. If I find someone who loves the real me, not the successful me or the useful me. Just, me. He turned to look at her, his expression soft. I don't think that'll be as hard as you imagine. 6 months later, Isabel came to visit. She looked different, lighter somehow. She'd started her own consulting firm helping companies implement ethical practices. Small, but growing. They had dinner at a restaurant overlooking the coast, and for the first time, they felt like friends rather than co-conspirators. I never thanked you properly, Isabel said. For protecting me during the investigation. For making sure I had legal representation. For everything. You thanked me by having the courage to tell the truth, Celeste said. That took more strength than anything I did. Do you ever wonder what would have happened if I hadn't contacted you? If I'd just gone through with the wedding? All the time. But I'm glad you did. Not just because it stopped Adrian, but because I think I needed to know the truth about who he was. Otherwise, I might have spent years wondering if I'd overreacted, if I'd thrown away something real. It wasn't real, Isabel said firmly. What you have now, that's real. Celeste smiled, thinking of Leon, who was currently in Rome giving a lecture but would be back tomorrow. Yeah. I think you're right. The final piece of closure came unexpectedly. A letter, forwarded from her lawyers, from Adrian. He was 2 years into his sentence, housed in a minimum security facility in France. She almost didn't read it. Marina advised against it. Leon left the choice up to her. In the end, curiosity won. The letter was surprisingly simple. No excuses, no justifications. Just, "I'm sorry. You deserved better than what I gave you. I hope you found it." She folded the letter carefully and put it in a drawer. Not to treasure, not to torture herself with. Just to acknowledge and release. That evening, she and Leon walked along the beach. The Aurelia Estates property glowed warmly behind them, music drifting from the terrace where guests gathered for dinner. "Do you ever miss it?" Leon asked. "The empire. The power. Being on top of the world." "Sometimes," she admitted. "But I don't miss who I had to be to maintain it. I was so focused on building something impressive that I forgot to build something meaningful. This." She gestured to the hotel, "The sea, the sky, this feels meaningful. Even though it's smaller. Especially because it's smaller. I can know every employee's name. I can make sure every decision aligns with my values. I'm not trying to conquer the world anymore. I'm just trying to make my corner of it better." Leon took her hand, and they walked in silence for a while, waves lapping at their feet. "You know what the most powerful thing about your story is?" he said eventually. "What?" "You won. You got justice, you exposed the truth, you took everything he tried to hide. But that's not what saved you. What saved you is choosing to walk away from revenge and toward redemption. A lot of people can win. Very few can win and still keep their humanity." She leaned her head on his shoulder, feeling more at peace than she had in years. If Celeste's story touched you, remember this: your pain can refine you, not define you. You don't heal by getting even. You heal by getting better, by choosing yourself, by building a life so authentic that the people who betrayed you become footnotes in your history rather than chapters. This is Mr. Stephen's Stories, where every tale reminds you that resilience is the most beautiful revenge. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more stories that inspire, educate, and awaken your inner strength. 3 years after that night in Dubai when her world collapsed, Celeste stood on a stage in Geneva accepting an award for ethical business practices. As she looked out at the audience, she realized she couldn't even remember what Adrian's voice sounded like. Couldn't remember the exact shade of his eyes or the way he laughed. What she could remember was every step of the journey from that moment of betrayal to this moment of triumph. Every tear, every decision, every time she chose grace over rage, truth over comfort, growth over bitterness. In her acceptance speech, she said something that made headlines across business journals. "I was once engaged to a man who saw me as a means to an end. He taught me the most valuable lesson of my life, though not the one he intended. He taught me that the only person you can truly rely on is yourself. Not in a cynical way, but in an empowering one. When you know you can survive your worst nightmare and come out stronger, you stop making decisions from fear. You start making them from purpose." After the ceremony, journalists asked about Adrian, about the trial, about the revenge. She smiled and said simply, "That's ancient history. I'm more interested in talking about the future." Because that was the truth. Adrian was ancient history. The girl who'd loved him, who'd planned a wedding and believed in forever, she was ancient history too. What remained was a woman who'd been tested by fire and emerged not unscathed, but unbroken. As Celeste left the stage, her phone buzzed with a text from Leon, "Proud of you. See you at home." Home. Such a simple word, but it meant everything. Not a penthouse in Dubai or a mansion in Monaco. Just a restored farmhouse in Tuscany that they'd bought together, with lemon trees in the courtyard and a view of rolling hills. She texted back a single word, "Soon." And as she stepped out into the Geneva evening, surrounded by people congratulating her, celebrating her, she felt something she hadn't felt in years. Complete. Not because she'd destroyed the man who'd betrayed her, though she had. Not because she'd rebuilt her empire, though she had. But because she'd finally learned the difference between winning and succeeding. Winning was about defeating others. Succeeding was about becoming yourself. And Celeste Navarro had finally, truly, succeeded. See you in the next one, and remember, the best comeback is peace. The sweetest revenge is a life so well lived that those who wronged you become irrelevant to your joy. Freedom from revenge is the richest reward. You don't need to destroy anyone to win. You only need to choose yourself.